Thank you for joining us today, guys. We decided we're going to do something a little bit different and a little special. We brought in 3 sort of guest speakers. A number of things that we see wrong with the markets. There's a bit of a theme here of me and Trevor always complaining about things in the market. But 3 individuals we have here are going to talk about some things that we think are happening in the markets, some of the ways you can get data, some of the ways you can sort of get rid of or deal with some of the issues we think are out in the market. We've got Tim over here with Markette Ventures. Markette is a platform that allows for easier access to financings for public companies and easier access for investors to be able to participate there. We've got Harold Leishman from Canaccord. And what do you guys call yourselves now? LLC?
LLC Private Wealth, and we just did a partnership with Brent Todd for a Smallcap specialist group. So.
Awesome. And we have Andy Creech from the TSX or TMX Venture Exchange. There you go. Keep it simple. So, anyways, I'm gonna turn over the mic to these guys, have them describe a little bit about what they're doing and some of the data and things that they think is relevant to the markets today. And then we can field some questions from you guys. So I'll start with Tim. Come on up and tell us what you're all about.
All right, thank you. First of all, just want to say thanks to Paul and the Smallcap group for having us here today. I'm very happy to support such a great organization and interesting group of companies as well. So as Paul mentioned, my name is Tim McKenzie. I'm the VP of Business Development for Markette Ventures. You probably haven't heard of us, and there's a good reason for that, is because we have not launched yet. We are slated to launch fall of this year. So what we're going to do today is give you a bit of an introduction, and you're very privileged to be among some of the first people to hear about what we're doing publicly as well. So what is Markette? According to our website, Markette is an end-to-end raising and investing platform that makes it easy for growth-oriented organizations to raise private capital by connecting them with a dedicated network of private investors who take innovation seriously. What does that mean? Put very simply, we are a registered EMD, exclusively focused on helping issuers raise capital via non-brokered private placements. We do so by utilizing a technology platform we spent the best part of 2 years developing. So when I say we're getting close to launch, it's been a long time and we're pretty excited to get in the market. We are a JV between Canaccord and TMX Group. We operate as a standalone entity, and once again, as I mentioned, we are a registered EMD. Why this partnership makes sense, not only business reasons and shared clients, but we're both in the business of supporting growth stage companies. We're both seeing trends that make our business relevant in today's market. TMX Canaccord also aligned on bridging the gap between issuers and investors in this sector of the market that we think is really important for the Canadian economy. So why are we so focused on this market, and why have we spent a lot of time and a lot of resources building this business to help issuers and investors in this market? Well, we know it's growing, right? That's no secret. If you ask ChatGPT to pull the private markets AUM across North America, this chart is what you get. So top line BlackRock, bottom line Bain. What's interesting is, well, both are going up. Second of all is that huge variation between projections. Everybody else is kind of in between these two, right? This tells a story in itself about just how opaque these private markets are. And Markette goes some way to improving transparency in the Canadian market, at least anyway. We also know that companies are staying private longer. I mean, the good thing about that is that we know that these companies are getting access to private capital. Some negative things are, well, that limits the liquidity options for early stage investors. And secondly, anybody else trying to get into these deals are restricted from doing so. Okay, so we know supply is increasing. We have some empirical data there. So what about demand? Well, if we look at the retail audience alone and, into the rise of the rhetoric here, Some really key points here. 2021, COVID era, 12 million new brokerage accounts in US and Canada. They stuck around. Private wealth in Canada, 5.5 trillion in 2022, expected to increase to 9.3 in 2030. 110 million retail investors in North America represent about 20% of global equity volume. That's doubled from over a decade ago. And I think most importantly, this segment of investor is the most important for the small cap and private company space. So a market of growing supply, growing demand, but we still have this challenge of matching issuers with investors. And I think that alone is the thesis of market ventures. So if we insert ourselves in between the issuer and the investor, we provide that issuer with the tools to manage the non-brokered private placement. We vet the offering, we make sure it's quality and suitable for our market, we put it on our platform. That is distributed digitally amongst broker dealers, family offices, high net worth individuals, retail investors across the country. That issuer has the tools to manage their offering, EOIs, allocations, data rooms, the investors are signing documents, e-subs. We manage the cash, we close faster, we save costs, and we mitigate a myriad of risks. So once again, to summarize, what are we trying to do here? Well, if you had to summarize the value proposition, we improve access to capital for issuers, we improve access to opportunities for investors, and we enhance efficiencies for all participants. To find out more, once again, we're launching in fall, so markette.ca is a good place to go, or else I'm around today, tomorrow, if you want to have a conversation as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Tim. Next up, we have Andy Creech from the TMX Venture Exchange.
Great, thanks, Paul, and thanks everybody for joining today. So I just wanted to go through a few stats on financings and listings, just to give you sort of a pulse for what we're seeing out there. I'll be going pretty quick because I know there's a bunch of things going on during the day here. So in terms of deal flow for year to date so far, we've had 30 mining issuers listed, 4 CPCs, which are capital pool companies. And I just mentioned that out because we haven't seen CPCs listed for probably 12 to 14 months or more. When we start seeing those form, that means there's optimism out there that they think they can find some new assets to take public. 4 technology deals and 3 oil and gas. Of those listed, those listings, 8 were international, 3 out of the US. In total, we've got about 1,550 listed issuers on TSX Venture. I'm going to go mostly venture side because this is the microcap conference, but there's 230 international listings on our Rolodex of listings that we have. In August alone, on the TSX side, they had 2 mining companies list, basically graduations from venture. They were Australian mining entities, and then 1 REIT. For TSX Venture in August, we had 2 mining companies list. Life science company out of Israel, VVT Medical. They work on varicose veins. Then a tech company out of the Caymans, XTAU, tech infrastructure for blockchain and tokens. Then a consumer company is out of Israel, Eshbal. They make gluten-free products. And then in terms of financings, year over year, in terms of year to date, it's actually level between TSX and TSX Venture between the 2 years, but there's been a shift because we're quite active on the TSX Venture. So the average financing size for TSX last year was 42 million. This year it's 27. But for venture, the average was 3.3 and now it's up to 5. So in terms of aggregate capital raised, we've had 4.8 billion raised so far this year on the venture versus 2.8 last year. So there's been a shift in the capital down to the junior market because TSX, it's dropped from 12.2 billion down to 10 billion. So kind of that 2.5 billion shifted out of the TSX side and into the venture space. The financings, like I said, there's about 15 billion aggregate between the 2 markets, 6.4 in mining, 2.7 in utilities, 1 in financials, tech, another billion there, and then real estate. So that's sort of the hit list for the stats, because I know we're kind of moving there.
I got a question for you there, Andy. Are you seeing more or less international companies that are looking to list on the exchange?
We have a heavy dose of international companies, like North American management teams with international resources, but we have a global business development team. We have people located on the ground in Australia. We put Luke down there a year ago, and he's getting decent traction out of Australia and bringing those generally projects in North America, management teams in Australia, getting those entities to list up here. For the tech side of things, we've got someone down in California and also down in Dallas, Texas. And then we've got someone over in the UK. So they're always turning up new leads. And then we have the CPC deal portal. So what happens is any prospect can send in their slide deck. We put it through the CPC deal portal. So every CPC out there, all the directors and officers have access to the new interest entities coming to seeking a listing. So trying to build it out that way as well.
Fantastic. Just wondering if anybody's got any questions out there they'd like to ask Andy or Tim at this point. If you do, just raise your hands, or we move on to Harold. So, why don't we go ahead? Sorry, what was the question? Canaccord?
How much did Canaccord invest in Markette?
The partnership is a 50-50 JV. So we're partners in 50-50 in every sense. We've been building for about 2 years now. I would say we have high expectations and lofty goals, and I think the investment so far reflects that.
Okay, so we've had a bit of data from Andy, and now we're going to bring up Harold and talk about maybe vetting some of that data, trying to find some of the new high flyers from the group.
The new high flyers, no pressure. First of all, Paul, thank you so much. This conference is probably the preeminent small cap conference in the country. The quality of the issuers that show up every year is always fantastic, and on the investor side too, I think. So, and you make it look effortless.
Trevor makes it look effortless.
I'm a broker at Canaccord. Our team provided the data that's in the booklets. We're very much a data-focused small cap group. We've partnered with Brent Todd, who's been around for decades and decades and has a long history in the space. And we just did that because there's so much information, trying to corral it all and make sense of it and find the best opportunities. Sort of, as you would say, Paul, the cheapest companies growing fast. This is what we're looking for. Takes a huge amount of effort. I'm sure with ChatGPT, as someone said, you could probably build your own data set that could make it easier, but I would certainly encourage people to do that. On the financing side, I noticed you said that it's growing on the TSXV. What we notice is the speed with which financings are taking place. Bought deals announced at 4 p.m. one day, closing at 5 a.m. the next morning, and might be a $10 million issue, and ends up being a $20 million issue that's sold basically overnight, is really sort of I guess a mark of where we are in the cycle. One of my partners, Julian, is giving a talk tomorrow at lunch, and he's refreshing a metric that we introduced last year about sort of where we think we are in the cycle based on the data we're using. I would recommend you listen to that. We think that's really a key piece. In terms of high flyers, I mean, it's certainly a commodity. It is a commodity market, and we believe that the influx of capital into that space will lift all ships in a fairly significant way. So yeah, that's kind of the basic gist of it.
Do you think that's an indication of more speculation, or is it different investors that are coming to the market? What do you think?
I think my perspective is that historically, when there's a theme that becomes really popular, the international flows of capital, particularly out of the U.S., it's like the python eating the pig. I mean, it is a huge volume of money that can flow in. I mean, look at the cannabis cycle as a great example, or even 2021. So I think I would expect it's going to be largely internationally driven. Canada has a unique spot in the resource market that I think will attract huge amounts of capital as gold and silver continue to, make new highs.
One thing that...
Can I just jump in there for 1 sec?
Oh, yeah, please.
So on that note, what we're seeing now in this cycle, which wasn't there 3 to 5 years ago, is we're getting more retail institutional and family office participation from across the world now. Like we're starting to see the European investors open their pocketbooks to participate in financings. And there used to be institutionals that would only invest in TSX, which would pressure some of our venture issuers to graduate to TSX to do financings with those, but they're getting more and more comfortable actually financing on with companies on the venture. So we've seen that activity as well.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, just participation at the conference here, we have a lot of international investors that have flown in specifically for the conference. So I think it's clearly an indication that the the venture markets in Canada are attracting different investors. But when it what more do you think can be done to attract that kind of investor to call it Canadian microcaps? Either of you. I'll take any suggestions here.
I wish I knew. That's a great question. I think it's as someone said earlier today, there are fewer retail brokers in the space, and I think that is true. There's myself and my team are probably more of an anomaly. I don't know how the family offices find these opportunities, and I think it's great. We should do more of whatever is bringing them in to begin with. Yeah.
I'll tackle that slightly differently. We're all subject to the cycle, right? And so even if we were to sell an entity on going public, if there's if risk is off, risk is off. But we do hear it time and time again from our entrepreneurs that are listing with us and trying to finance. The financing window, when it's open, it needs to close, the deals need to close in a timely fashion. So we're investing in training, we're investing in leveraging more technology so that we can do our jobs quicker and more efficiently, because everyone's usually pounding the table, I need it done yesterday. We still need to uphold the market integrity. We still have to comply with our rule book and whatnot, but there are ways that we can invest in staff and technology to make that review process quicker, such that issuers and entrepreneurs can hit that financing window quicker.
Yeah, I can add to that too. I think when you look at a company that is doing a transaction and may not have the access to do that by the broker route, wouldn't get the attention of Canadian bankers, that's where something like Markette would step in, right? Distribution for a company that wouldn't get the distribution otherwise, and in a fashion that keeps that cost of capital reasonable as well.
And I guess all three of you, I mean, we're addressing a lot of investors here. What do you think, from your seats, what could investors be doing to either take advantage of either the services you guys provide, or what in some ways are they missing that could improve their, let's say, their performance or what they're trying to do? Maybe start with Harold. You're dealing with clients all the time. Where do you see mistakes made, and where do you see them not accessing what's available to them?
Yeah, I think for us, we see clients struggle to manage their positions appropriately. They end up overloading one name because they believe and which is great when it works, but quite often it takes longer. Maybe it doesn't work as well. So position management, and also just a rational discourse around the value of what you're buying in the company versus what else is available in the market. Investing is a highly emotional game. We all try to make it super intellectual, but at the end of the day, it's an emotional business. Lots of conversations with people that have objective views. I know for us, we meet on a regular basis every couple of weeks, go through all the names. Is the thesis intact? Has anything changed? Has there been news? Financials out. We try to liaise with other people that we think are smart, like yourself and Trevor, some funds and so on, and exchange ideas. So I think the retail investor can often just focus on their own view, and it doesn't get challenged, or they end up chasing information that just they've got confirmation bias. They chase information which just confirms what they think to begin with. So.
And Tim, how do investors best utilize Markette and what you guys are trying to do?
Yeah, and to dovetail onto what Harold was saying, the problem we're trying to solve is access, right? And access to quality information. So we're probably looking at a transaction lower down the value curve than Harold and Andy. if you're signed up to Markette.ca, curated newsfeed of deals as they hit the platform, getting access to the same information as everybody else, leveling that playing field, to these deals that typically would have only been seen by a handful of retail advisors in the past. So improving access and information is one of our key drivers.
And lastly, Andy, I mean, there's so many tools that TMX provides. Where do you think investors can really benefit by some of those tools?
Well, we're definitely big on Markette. We're launching this thing. But in addition to that, we do TSX Investor Days. So we do bring entities in and then have the room full of investors to hear the pitches there. We also work on a couple conferences. We did the TSX Venture Growth Capital Conference in Kelowna this summer. So that, again, was about 40 issuers and then investors in the room there hearing the pitches there. So there's a multitude of ways there.
There we go. Question out there.
Yes, Andy, since about April or May, the TSX Ventures was around 550 and now it's over 920. But for a retailer like myself, it's hard to differentiate between the non-resource from the resource-based companies. Is there any way of doing that, so that we can sense how the microcap world in which we're kind of dealing today is doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I do want to point out it's a slightly flawed index in terms of when issuers come in, they list with us. But the good ones that graduate to TSX, as soon as they graduate to TSX, then we lose their participation moving forward. So what I'm trying to say is that, all of our shining stars that actually graduate out, that index doesn't necessarily show the success that we've had in terms of listing, list a company with a $2 to $4 million financing, they execute on their business plan for 3 years, and then when they finally start hitting and taking in 30, 40 million in a round, they graduate up to TSX to do that. So, but it is sort of like, to see where the sentiment is at, you can use that as a gauge. But in terms of breaking it down between the sectors, I'd have to double check. I know we have tons of market information out there that should be able to break that down a bit more than that. There's the MIG report. I don't know if you guys have seen the MIG report. There's lots of good information in there that comes out monthly, and it does break down financing by sector, new listing by sector, and it's a good way to get a good pulse as to what's getting financed and what's not.
And the MIG report is on
Yeah, I think it's www.tmx./MIG.
Yeah, it's an excellent source of information. We've looked at that a number of times over, 7-8 years just to see which sectors are generating the most finance activity, which will equate to trading volume, right, or liquidity.
Any other questions out there? Great. Well, listen, I want to thank everybody, all the three gentlemen here, Tim, Harold, and Andy, for joining us today. And thank you guys for taking a bit of time away from your lunch. So appreciate it, and look forward to it. Well, listen, if you have any questions you want to take these guys aside and ask, please do so outside.